Well, good morning, everyone. This is Judy Feldhausen, and I am joined by my good friend and co-host, Bob Wischmeier today. Good morning, Bob.
Yeah, good morning, Judy. Thank you so much. Always great to have a Saturday morning with Judy Feldhausen.
It's always great to be with the people you know, like, and trust, right?
That's exactly right. And Bonnie's listening in, of course, and says to tell Judy hi.
Oh, hi, Bonnie. I miss you.
She says hi. Yeah.
So today we're going to continue our educational series. And we're continuing with the book Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And this chapter talks about a tipping point. And I actually put in this slide with the teeter-totter. So teeter-totter's not real popular anymore because, you know, you probably need to wear seatbelts if you use a teeter-totter these days. But when I was young, that was like the funnest thing to do when you went to the playground was to get on the teeter-totter. And if one person was heavier than the other, it was really difficult to get the other person up high on the teeter-totter. There was a tipping point, you know, that center that once it happened, holy smokes, you know, the lighter person just flew to the ground because of that tipping point. And that's what we're going to cover today is how a tipping point works, because it's an amazing thing. And if any of you have been in network marketing for a long time, in network marketing, they don't call this a tipping point. But what they do is when your product gets to a place where everyone is using it and talking about it and things are flying off the shelf, it's actually called momentum. So if you've been in network marketing a long time and your company has talked about, oh my gosh, we are almost to momentum. And in network marketing, momentum is around the $1 billion point. And once a network marketing company gets to $1 billion, it's actually easier to get to 2 billion, 3 billion, 10 billion. I have a friend who's been in a network marketing company for 5 years. And it took them a year to get to $1 billion. That's kind of like unheard of, but a year. 5 years later, they're at 50 billion. Oof. So, you know, they really, once they got to that tipping point, just everyone's talking about the product.
It's interesting too. You know, there's tipping points happen. There's no question about it. But one of the things that Simon Sinek, I guess he's trying to focus on is the simple fact that can you make that happen intentionally? How do you do your marketing so that you can actually intentionally create that kind of a tipping point? It's, you know, you have to be able to design that. It's kind of like the difference between a fad and an idea that literally can change an industry. One of the things too, Judy, for me anyway, when I'm reading Simon Sinek, I often have to read and reread and sometimes reread again his writing. His brain is considerably larger than my brain is. And because I don't, you know, this is what he does for a living, of course, but it can be a little bit challenging. So as we're going through these thoughts today, talking about, you know, how do we actually create a tipping point? Think of your own synergy business. Think of, okay, how can I apply this to the world that I live in, the stark reality of where I live, what I do, what my life is like, and try to apply this to our synergy businesses. I think that's going to be key this morning to kind of figuring out what this tipping point business is all about, Judy.
Yeah, you're so right, Bob. And it's in our business because we are a part of a bigger whole, but when we're looking at the tipping point, I think for us individually, it's looking at what our personal tipping point is, not concerned about synergy's tipping point.
Right, exactly.
Right.
That's where the rubber hits the road. It's in our own yard.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so and we invite, if anyone has any questions or comments during the webinar, we invite you to stop us and to help us clarify for you, because Bob is right. This Simon Sinek's writings are not laid out in a linear fashion, let's say, at least not in my mind, my linear mind, the way my mind works. It's not linear.
Yeah, so that's exactly right. So we're going to do a great job. We're going to do the very best that we can. Well, I just have fewer brain cells than Simon Sinek, but that's okay. Bonnie likes me that way, so it works out just fine.
That's great, Bob.
There we go.
So why don't we go to the next slide?
Let's do it. Yep. This law of diffusion.
Yes. So the law of diffusion of innovations. So I put a website or a YouTube video up on here, and we're not going to play it. It takes 5 minutes. And most of you have probably seen this before. And if you remember, it is the dancer who is in a park, and he just starts having the greatest time dancing among tons of other people, and he's dancing all alone.
Right.
And one person comes and joins him, and then another person comes to join him. And then more people come to join him until almost everyone is dancing with this guy.
We just went to a wedding in Boise, Idaho on last Saturday night, just a week ago, come to think about it today. And we watched that happen at the wedding. One couple out there dancing, and then some children came out, and then another couple, and pretty soon all kinds of people were out there. Bonnie and I were out there dancing. That's what happens. It starts early. I think, Judy, do you mind if I go ahead and step in for just a minute?
Sure.
I wanted to talk a little bit, you guys, about this left side of this bell curve here. Innovators, this 2.5% of innovators. It's just logical. And I think when you think it through, that there's going to be a really small percentage of the population that sort of challenges the rest of us to think of the world just a little bit differently. These are the people who pursue new innovation aggressively or create new things. These are those folks that are just intrigued by any fundamental change or advancement. Being first is huge to innovators. That's where things get started. That's that Dan Higginson guy that came up with an idea and some products and a compensation plan in a company. That's where he is. That's those innovators. That's where that really begins. And as you have that small group or that small percentage of people who are coming up with ideas and products and stuff, there will always be what is referred to here as early adopters, people who get it, people who sort of step in. They're similar. This second group, this 13.5% of individuals, very, very similar to the innovators, but they're probably not creators so much. They appreciate the advantages of new ideas or new technologies. These are the folks who are early to recognize the value of new ideas, the value they're willing to put up with, even a little bit of imperfection, if you will, in new products, because they can see the potential. It's a small group of people, but we all know who those people are. We see them, we're familiar with them. These are the folks who are willing to take a risk, a little bit of a risk at least, to try new things. They're not necessarily generators of ideas like the innovators are, but they're very similar. These are the folks who really trust their intuition or that gut feeling. This is good. These are the guys that buy that Zoom stock back in the day when Dan Hammer first introduced us to Zoom, and none of us knew what Zoom was. And then the pandemic hits and we're all wishing we'd have bought Zoom stock back when Dan first introduced us to the Zoom platform, because it skyrocketed. The early adopters, recognized that and probably bought some Zoom stock clear back then. Same with Yahoo and things like that. Early adopters, I keep saying the word improperly. Those are the folks who are willing to pay a premium or suffer some level of inconvenience to own a product or to espouse an idea that just feels right. These are the guys who will stand in line for 6 hours to buy that new iPhone. Okay, those are the early adopters. You know, and we all know people like that. We do. A long, long time ago, like I got thinking about this last night, back in about 1976, maybe, something like that. I had a friend who bought a calculator. These were the first calculators that came out. They could add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And he paid like $56 for that calculator. In 1976 or whenever that was, it was a huge sum. You can buy the same thing for $1 at the dollar store today, you know? And he was an early adopter. He saw the value of the thing and he wanted it. I remember thinking, I only made $400 a week back there in the cabinet shop. You know, he paid $50 plus for a tiny little calculator thing. Their willingness to suffer an inconvenience or to pay a premium probably has less to do with how great the product is and has more to do with their sense of who they really are. And I think that's kind of the key. They want to be first. These are the folks that bought those flat screen TVs for $40,000. Remember that when they first came out? All the Bluetooths, all the Blackberries, all the laptops. Bonnie and I, years and years ago, we were down in Boise, Idaho, and we wanted to do something nice for my sister and my brother-in-law. And they'd gone through kind of a tough time. And so we decided they didn't have a TV, or they had a little bitty TV. I can't remember what, it doesn't matter. But Bonnie and I decided we were going to buy them a television. And we were doing really well. And so Bonnie and I went to a store and looked at a bunch of televisions. That's where we saw our very first flat screen TV. We were dumbfounded. The thing was unbelievable. It wasn't that great of a picture either, but it was like $20,000. And it was hanging on a wall. And we stood and looked at that and just shook our heads. Who would ever buy something like that? And a salesman came up to us and we were talking. And he said, oh, yeah, we've sold several of those. There's a guy that bought a couple of those to put on his boat. They were like 20 grand for these televisions. I I don't know about you guys, but some of those early adopters are pretty remarkable to spend that kind of money on a product that hasn't even been really tested or proved yet. But anyway, you guys all get the drift, who these innovators are and these early adopters. Then come the early majority. Judy.
Yeah, the early majority, they're slightly more comfortable with new ideas or technology, but they really have a need now. You're talking want versus need. So now they have a need for what they think is a good idea. So this, I think, is the sweet spot in this bell curve for our clients, because they're willing to kind of look at both sides. They're not going to jump into it before it's been proven and tested, but they are at the cutting edge of wanting something and also needing something. So the farther you go on this bell curve, when you get to late majority, they don't necessarily believe what you believe. They really are now looking at not only features and benefits, now they're looking at the price. So to me, these are the people that are maybe buying once from you because you did such a great job explaining the benefits and the features and how great the product is. And so they buy it from you. And then what do? Then they go on Amazon because they have the belief and now they're looking for price. So
it's just so interesting.
Isn't it?
Yeah, excuse me, Judy. I was just going to say that, yeah, it's very interesting. We see this all the time. That early majority of people, they want somebody else to try it first. They want to get a recommendation from somebody, but will buy in. They will buy into what you have to offer. And I guess it's kind of because we all sort of assign different values to different things. You can't convince somebody of the value of your products or your ideas, based on what arguments, tangible benefits. That doesn't breed any kind of loyalty at all. And so when companies when they're trying to sell a product and they aim at this group of people right here in the dead center here, this early and late majority, and most companies they'll sell some products, but they won't have any kind of loyalty to the company. That's for sure, Judy.
Yeah, absolutely. And Simon Sinek makes a reference that, a company believes that they have a great closing rate when they close at 10%. But in reality, you can close at 10% even without knowing what you're doing or believing what you believe or focusing on anything, that you'll naturally just close at 10%.
You can almost fall into the 10%.
Exactly. And then the last part of the bell curve, the laggards, what these are the people that they might like their 6-track tape player, but you know what? It's not available anymore. And they had to go to CD, or the CD aficionados that now are almost having to stream. So, they got to come along. They don't have a choice. They'll be there, but it's going to take them a long time.
Yeah, exactly.
Long time to do that.
That's why they call it laggards. My son James came in from my shop one time years and years ago over in Montana, and he was talking to me about the antique radio that I had out in the shop, and I could not for the life of me figure out what he was talking about. And finally I said, James, just show me what you're talking about. So we went out to the shop, and I had on the shelf an old 8-track tape deck out there. That's what he was talking about. That antique radio was an 8-track tape deck. When I was in college, I had a 4-track tape deck in my Volkswagen microbus, on a 6-volt system. Things change. There are those laggards. This is a guy who doesn't want to buy a touch tone phone, but the only reason he does is because he can't get a rotary dial. He can't get one hanging on the wall that you can rotary dial. Those are the laggards. Yeah,
exactly.
And there's a group of people. There's actually a larger group of people than the early adopters, right?
Right. And so when we're looking at
just how it is.
Yeah, and when we're looking at converting, getting customers, we really want to focus on the left side of the bell curve, and specifically into the early majority. However, if you get an early adopter into your team, oh my gosh, those early adopters, they're the ones that are going to bring other people in because they have such a strong belief in what they're doing that it's almost like a magnet.
Yeah, think for just a minute about your Synergy business. How easy is it to get a customer? It's fairly easy to get a customer. How easy is it to find a good distributor? That's a whole different world, isn't it? It just is. I've probably got over $1.5 million in my banked volume right now. I just need one more good distributor to flip my weak leg and strong leg. That's all I need. And I've been trying to find that one person for the last 8 years. I just haven't been able to find them. And it's a ton of money for me when that happens. Finding a good distributor, that's a whole different thing. Those are the early adopters. Those individuals who see what you see, feel what you feel, catch that vision and just want to go with it, just want to move with it, not necessarily based on just the product or just the marketing or the company, but get it, truly get it. But when you find those people, then you have an advocate on your side, and your business will grow. And everybody on this webinar knows that. That's how it is, isn't it, Judy?
It so is. And that's really, bringing it back to the basis of this entire book, because when we can really dig deep into someone's why, and they are really grounded in that why, that's when you get the distributor who is going to take off and do amazing things.
That's so important for us to remember too. Some of us have, during the course of our experience with Synergy Worldwide, we have focused way too much attention on late majority people or laggards, people who, they'll buy it from you. You have to spend a lot of time talking with them. They get their first order, and like Judy just mentioned, then their next order they buy from Amazon. Don't do it. Don't spend your time and energy trying to convince somebody. A man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. That's how it is in life. And so we've got to learn to, step away. Joe Blow says, yeah, whatever. Yeah, maybe I'll buy some from you, and look for those individuals who get what you have to say. It's a world of difference, of difference. And that's what will make the difference in your business.
It will, because what happens when you don't, if we could go to the next slide, is refusing to consider the law of diffusion and what it costs you. And
well, that's exactly right. Yeah.
So I have a question. So who and put it in the chat, or raise your hand, or just say out loud, who has ever heard of TiVo?
I have.
Yeah, I have.
Okay. So, and a lot of people, even the older people, still say that they TiVo'd their shows, even though, like me, I've never owned a TiVo, and I really was not interested in a TiVo, but a TiVo, it's such an amazing product. I mean, if you look at it, it pauses like a TV. It skips commercials. It rewinds like a TV. It records shows on your behalf, knowing the kind of shows that you like. It will then set the recordings up for you, so you don't have to do it. That's an amazing system, right? Those features and benefits. Holy smokes. But TiVo forgot to talk about who that person was that was going to use that system, why you needed it, how important it was. Just listing those benefits didn't do much for them. And in fact, back like 5 years after they the product had been launched, they had hardly any market share. In fact, one analyst said that there were as many outhouses in America as there were TiVos in homes.
That's a great analogy, isn't it?
It's a great analogy. That's, but if they had marketed a little bit differently, the outcome would have been different. If they had talked about, why it's important to be able to do that, who that person was, if they could get into the innovators or the early adopters' heads and go, oh my gosh, I really need this. I need to save time. It's such a waste for my precious time to watch a commercial, or I need to really understand. I'm the person that really needs to understand things, so I need to rewind and look at it again and really concentrate. But they didn't do that. And if you look at cable today, isn't this exactly what cable does? Almost, except for maybe recording the shows. Although you can, my cable, I can actually set up a show to record on a weekly basis without me ever having to, I do it once and it never happens again.
Yeah, one of my sons, James, lives in Indiana. He uses, now everybody knows what a DVR is, and that's what the cable companies came up with, was the DVR, and everybody uses them. My son records ball games and shows all the time, pauses right through, just scoots right through the commercials, all that kind of thing. It's like, I think early on when TiVo was trying to launch this thing, because of the way all they did was just put out what it does. This is just what it does. So you get a lot of people who say, I don't understand it. I don't need it. I don't like it. It scares me. I don't want anything to do with it. But like Simon Sinek says, if TiVo would have approached this just a little bit differently, saying something like, if you're the kind of person who likes to have total control of every aspect of your life, boy, do we have a product for you. Well, all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, that's me. I do want to have, it's focusing on that left side of that bell curve. That's where you're catching those innovators and those early adopters. It's like, yeah, that's me. I want to be ahead of the curve here. That you're talking to me. And as soon as those people start using a product like this, they're telling their friends, you would not believe, come over to my house. You got to see this. I recorded the Bears football game last week. Have you seen it? No, well, I've got it. We recorded it, that kind of a thing. You follow the drift. So it has everything to do with a big company and how you market, where you focus your attention, and who you're trying to catch. When you get people who get what you're trying to do, who understand why you're doing and where you're going with things, it changes the whole ballgame completely, Judy.
So true. And it's getting the people who believe what you believe. So if we could go to the next slide, Bob. Oh, yeah. Wrong one. There you go.
Yeah, there we go. Go the other way, would you? Well, yeah. So, and I wanted to share a couple of thoughts here with respect to something to believe, because, I think about, and this is something that Simon Sinek, I don't know, he had 3 or 4 pages talking about Dr. Martin Luther King, who all of us, adore and have always adored. I love them. In August 28th, 1963, if you'll remember, there were 250,000 people. That's 250,000 people came from all across America to the Washington Mall to hear that speech that Dr. King, the I Believe speech. They didn't know what the speech was going to be at that time, but people came from everywhere. There weren't flyers out. They didn't get online to look up what time to be there. People didn't have cell phones. There weren't invitations. There was no mass marketing. When you think about it, everything that had to do with that gathering on Washington Mall all those years ago had to do with a movement that had the power to change a whole country. It was an idea that someone, Dr. King, believed in, that created that movement. And people came not just because Dr. King was going to be there, but because of what people believed in. And people came together for what they believed in. He had absolute conviction of his ideas and principles of that movement. It was his clarity of why, his sense of purpose, that gave him the strength and energy to continue that fight against, really, when you think about it, really seemingly insurmountable odds. His movement rallied a nation because people wanted things to change. They believed in what he believed in. He talked about what he believed. He put his why into words. I believe. There's 250,000 people who came that day, not just to see Dr. King, but they came for themselves because they believed in the movement. They believed. He spoke about what he believed that day, but he didn't talk about how to make it happen, what they needed to do. He just talked about what he believed in. And that's so powerful. When we think about our own personal synergy businesses, I've been involved in this company for a very long time. Do I have a passion for these products? Absolutely, I do. I had a friend not long ago who had to go into the hospital, an emergency room kind of a thing, thinking he was maybe having a heart attack or something. He's a great guy. He's a younger man, well-educated. He's got a master's degree. He works at the University of Idaho. He's just a great guy. Turns out it was just anxiety. And he sent me a text message, let me know what was going on, that he was in the hospital, etc. I'd never spoken to him before about Synergy Worldwide, about Pro-Arginine Plus, about cardiovascular health or nitric oxide therapy or any of those things, because sometimes I kind of hold back a little bit. It's sort of my nature to be quieter than louder. But I sat down I said, Jeremy, you need to start using what I use. You need to listen to this. He says, okay, I'm in. Send me some information. And that's when my passion, of course, kicked in. Sat down on my computer, looked up some things on our Synergy family, got some videos to send to him, bore my testimony to him of the products and the value, etc., and got that all into the mail. My belief system really kicked in when someone I cared about needed what I had to share. And I think that's how it is for most of us. It's that belief system that really carries the day. You believe what you believe. It's not just a skill set. Judy?
That's true. And how many people, when you talk to them, get that feeling from you? How are you presenting Pro-Arginine Plus or microbiome or E9? How are you presenting that to your customers? Are you only talking about features and benefits, or are you letting them know what you believe to see if they believe the same things? And that's where I believe that you convert from people that listen to people that use the product.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. But that said, Judy, we do need to be talking about our products. If we're sometimes people get into that mindset that, well, I've built a pretty good business up here, we're doing pretty good, I'm just going to manage it now. That doesn't work in this kind of a business. So we need to be talking about what it is that we do and why we believe the things that we believe. The exposures, right? Quality exposures. That's pretty much everything.
Exactly. And it's getting back to that golden circle, right?
Yeah.
So it's the why, and then the what, and then the how. They're all important, but you just need to address the why first. And if the why doesn't, if your whys don't merge, then it's probably better just to move on before you get to the what and the how.
There you go. Yeah, there you have it.
Yep. So if we could just look at the next slide real quickly, because this whole belief thing really got me thinking. And so I started looking at Synergy's website to see, does Synergy have a belief system? And this is what I found. Elite health is the pinnacle of wellness, where age does not dictate ability. Scientifically, elite health is optimal metabolic function, the state in which all body systems are performing efficiently, which gives you the energy to see more, do more, and be more, no matter what stage of life you're in. Elite health is stepping into every new decade with new ambition. It is the freedom to live without limitation, and it's through a healthy mind and body that this freedom is realized.
It's an awesome statement, Judy.
It really is.
Yeah.
Really
I tend to talk a lot about not just elite health. Elite health is, of course, the pinnacle, right? I talk a lot about holistic health because there are other parts of our lives, of our world, that are also extremely important, and that has to do with relationships and spirituality and peace of mind and all of those things that come into play from day to day in our lives. It make a difference in our lives. So, I have a belief. I certainly have a belief system in place that guides and directs my life, and I hope everyone does. I think everybody, take some time, read through this again, look it up. There's some real value to this belief statement, Judy.
Absolutely. And I would challenge everyone to create their own belief statement, to really know from the inside, what are your true beliefs? And then how do you manifest those beliefs and share them so that you can get to the early adopters and people start believing what you believe and wanting to share that with other people.
Good counsel. Good counsel. Do we have any thoughts or questions or from the group today? Anything that you'd like to discuss before we close?
Hi guys, it's Donald.
Hi, Donald.
Hey, Donald.
Awesome presentation as usual. And I've got a couple of points here, and not necessarily in order, but on the TiVo slide, I was in the day of TiVo from the point of view of technology. That time I worked at Time Warner Cable. And when this product was coming out, I was one of the early adopters, so to speak, because I saw the potential of it. And now, but I never, because it was pricey, I never actually purchased the TiVo, but I love the concept. And the thing is now, I use my Amazon Fire Stick to do all of these things. In fact, I hardly watch live television anymore. I watch YouTube to play all the video clips, all the news clips on the whichever TV channel that I want to view, whether it be MSN, BC, Fox, Sport, what have you. And so this is where I am. I'm able to pause live TV, skip commercials, of course, rewind TV, record my shows, or the shows is recorded for me because of YouTube. And so that's where I am on that. The other thing that I want to talk about was being an early adopter as well. I was with a company, AFS Intercultural Programs. And at a Christmas party, I might have mentioned this before, at a Christmas party, I was asked to be part of the presentation. And I remember being the last person to perform. And the tune I selected was a Lionel Richie tune, All Night Long. So I started to sing that song. And when I got to kind of the last verse, I walked forward to the head of personnel and took her hand and brought her on the dance floor to dance with me. And with that, other members of staff joined in, and the party actually started. And when the next day, she thanked me so much, because it was the first time they had total participation. I mean, the president joined in and all that. So those are my two stories about today's presentation. And thank both of you for doing such a good job of presenting it.
Well, thank you, Donald. You're more of a romantic than I realized. I like it. Oh, great. Any other thoughts before we close? Well, Judy, thank you so much. We take some kind of tough chapters out of this book and try to put them into into our own world, the world that we live in with our synergy businesses. And it's not all that difficult. It's just organizing it so that it makes sense, so that we can present it in our own way, because our way of presenting and Simon's are a little bit different. So thank you, Judy, for that.
Thank you, Bob, for all your work.
I wanted to mention, we have our Monday morning calls, and on the 29th, not this next Monday, but the following Monday, we have a compliance officer from Synergy Worldwide, Eric, who is the head of compliance there. He's going to get on our Monday morning conference call on the 29th. So if you want to jump in on that call, it's at 7:30 Mountain Time on Monday morning. That'd be the 29th, I think it is. But we're going to have Eric on there talking to us about compliance, and this guy is the head of compliance for the company. So it'll be interesting to hear from him personally, hear from him live. We'll be able to ask him questions as well. So that'd be Monday morning on the 29th. Everybody's welcome to join us. I think it'll be a great call. Every Monday morning, Dane and I are on that Monday morning call. So welcome.
And did we have another question? I thought I heard someone in the background, Bob.
It was me again coming back, and back on the bell curve, and on the Synergy product. I had an early adapter that when living in the US, and it would come down, I would talk to an individual about the product. He saw the benefits of it. He's an insurance, that's life insurance representative. And he didn't, although he saw the benefits, and he used it, he couldn't find a way to market the product because it was not one of his things. One of the things that is happening now, that has happened, he found that in Barbados, there are a number of people with diabetes, and they are unable to get by his product. And he uses the product to put them on, which will bring their blood pressure and that kind of stuff into a normal range. They're able to qualify for insurance, I should say. And then once that happens, they move off the product. So they achieve their objective as early majority, and then they reach satisfaction, and for some reason, he can't get them to stay on the product. And only this week, we were trying to devise a way to get him to get him to understand how to get those persons to realize it was the product that got them the insurance that they needed, and they ought to, and now it should be their health that they should be interested in, and not necessarily acquiring the health insurance. Those were my three. Thank you guys very much.
Yeah, you bet. Donald, it is interesting. I have a customer who originally started using Pro-Arginine Plus in an effort to lower his blood pressure. And the reason he wanted to try it originally was because the company they'd worked for, his blood pressure was too high and his medical insurance had increased. Once he was able to lower his blood pressure into normal blood pressure ranges, his medical insurance kicked in. It lowered the price per month of his medical insurance, And but he stayed on the product through the last several years. He recognized that that it was the product that was doing that. It saved him a lot of money. I think it was a couple $100 a month difference in his medical insurance when his blood pressure was normalized. So yeah, we have the products. We've just got to find the right people. Anyway, we're running over time here, Judy. So anything else from you before we close?
No, just thanks everyone for your questions and comments, and for being a great audience and participating. And next time we do this, we are going to talk more about how to achieve a tipping point. So that should be a great webinar.
That's perfect. Thanks, Judy. Thanks, everybody. Take care.